Taking full responsibility for your life begins with the decision to stop outsourcing control of your outcomes to external factors. It means recognizing that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond, what you believe, and what actions you take. Responsibility is not about blame or guilt, it is about ownership. When you accept that your choices shape your direction, you reclaim the power to change that direction at any moment. Many people stay trapped because they confuse responsibility with punishment. They believe admitting responsibility means admitting failure or weakness, but the opposite is true. Responsibility is strength because it puts you back in the driver's seat. When you stop pointing to circumstances, people, or systems as the reason for your situation, you eliminate excuses and replace them with options. Options create movement, and movement creates progress. Taking responsibility also requires brutal honesty with yourself. It demands that you look at your habits, routines, and decisions without justification or denial. Growth cannot happen where self-deception lives. When you are honest about what you did or did not do, you gain clarity, and clarity allows you to make better choices moving forward instead of repeating the same patterns. Responsibility shifts your focus from what is unfair to what is possible. Life is not obligated to be fair, but it always responds to intentional action. When you accept this, you stop wasting energy on resentment and start investing energy into improvement. The moment you stop asking why things happen to you and start asking what you can do next, your mindset begins to mature. Ownership also changes how you see failure. Failure stops being an identity and becomes information. Instead of quitting or complaining, responsible individuals analyze results, adjust strategies, and try again. They understand that every setback carries a lesson, and every lesson is a tool for future success. This perspective transforms mistakes into mentors rather than roadblocks. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting to be rescued. You no longer expect motivation, permission, or validation to arrive from the outside. You become proactive rather than reactive. This internal shift builds confidence because confidence grows from keeping promises to yourself, especially when no one is watching and no one is applauding. Personal responsibility also affects how you manage your time. Instead of saying you are too busy, you acknowledge priorities. Instead of saying you had no choice, you recognize decisions. Time becomes a resource you steward rather than something that slips away. This awareness leads to intentional planning and disciplined execution rather than regret. Responsibility forces you to confront discomfort instead of avoiding it. Growth lives in the uncomfortable spaces where effort is required and excuses are ineffective. Choosing responsibility means choosing effort over ease and progress over pleasure. It means doing the necessary work even when emotions resist and results are not immediate. As responsibility deepens, self-respect increases. You trust yourself more because you know you will act instead of complain. This trust becomes the foundation of self-leadership, allowing you to influence others not by words, but by example. People naturally follow those who demonstrate control over their own lives rather than those who constantly explain why they cannot move forward. Taking full responsibility is a daily practice, not a one-time decision. It is reinforced every time you choose action over avoidance and accountability over excuses. Each responsible choice compounds into stronger character, clearer direction, and greater capacity to handle challenges as they arise without waiting for circumstances to change. Increasing your value daily begins with understanding that income, opportunity, and influence are always connected to usefulness. The more problems you can solve and the more results you can help create, the more valuable you become. Value is not tied to your intentions or your effort alone, but to the outcomes you are capable of producing. When you focus on becoming better rather than just doing more, your growth becomes intentional instead of accidental. Daily value growth requires a commitment to learning that never expires. Education does not end with formal schooling. It expands through reading, listening, observing, and applying. Every new skill you acquire widens your perspective and strengthens your ability to contribute. Learning compounds when practiced consistently, turning small improvements into powerful advantages over time. Increasing value also means developing rare and relevant skills. Common skills create common results, but specialized skills open uncommon doors. When you invest time in mastering what others avoid or overlook, you separate yourself from the crowd. Relevance ensures your skills match real-world needs, while mastery ensures your contribution cannot be easily replaced. Value grows through discipline, not convenience. Practicing when it is uncomfortable and studying when it feels tedious builds competence that casual effort never achieves. Consistency transforms potential into performance. The willingness to do the boring work repeatedly is often what elevates someone from average to exceptional. Your mindset plays a critical role in daily value expansion. A growth-oriented mindset looks for feedback instead of flattery and correction instead of comfort. When you stop protecting your ego and start protecting your progress, improvement accelerates. Humility becomes a tool rather than a weakness, allowing you to learn from anyone and refine your abilities continuously. Increasing your value also involves improving how you think, communicate, and decide. Clear thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions produce better results. The ability to communicate ideas effectively multiplies the impact of your knowledge. When people understand you, trust you, and benefit from your insight, your value naturally increases. Your habits quietly determine your level of value. What you do consistently becomes who you are eventually. Small daily disciplines, such as reading, practicing, reflecting, and refining, create a strong foundation for long-term growth. Neglecting these habits slowly erodes potential, even when talent is present. Value expansion requires patience and long-term vision. The results of daily improvement are not always visible immediately, but they are always accumulating. Many people quit too early because they cannot see progress, not realizing that growth often happens beneath the surface before it becomes obvious. Those who persist eventually experience breakthroughs that seem sudden, but were built gradually. Increasing your value also means becoming reliable and trustworthy. Skills attract opportunities, but character sustains them. Showing up prepared, honoring commitments, and delivering consistent results increases confidence in your ability. Reliability turns talent into influence and effort into reputation. When you commit to increasing your value daily, you stop chasing opportunities and start attracting them. Growth shifts from something you hope for into something you build intentionally. Each day becomes an investment in your future capacity, expanding what you can earn, create, and contribute through steady improvement and purposeful development. Controlling your thoughts begins with the awareness that every action you take is first born in the mind. Before behavior becomes visible, it exists as an idea, a belief, or an internal conversation. When you allow your thoughts to operate on autopilot, you surrender control of your direction. Conscious thought selection gives you the ability to interrupt negative patterns and replace them with intentional, empowering perspectives. Your mind constantly interprets events, assigning meaning to everything you experience. That meaning shapes your emotional response and determines how you act. Two people can face the same situation and produce completely different outcomes based solely on how they think about it. When you change the interpretation, you change the experience. And when the experience changes, so does the result. Uncontrolled thoughts often come from repetition, not truth. Many limiting beliefs are simply ideas you have heard or told yourself so often that they feel real. Challenging these beliefs requires questioning their origin and usefulness. When a thought does not serve growth, progress, or clarity, it becomes a liability rather than a guide. Thought control is not about denying reality, but about directing focus. What you consistently focus on expands in your awareness and influences your decisions. Focusing on obstacles magnifies fear, while focusing on solutions strengthens confidence. The mind moves toward whatever it is fed repeatedly, whether that is possibility or limitation. Language plays a powerful role in shaping thought patterns. The words you use internally become the framework through which you see why, ourself, and the world. When your self-talk is negative, your actions become hesitant. When your internal dialogue is intentional and constructive, your behavior aligns with confidence and clarity. Your environment also influences your thinking more than you may realize. The people you listen to, the content you consume, and the conversations you entertain all contribute to the mental atmosphere you live in. By choosing environments that reinforce growth-oriented thinking, you reduce mental resistance and increase alignment with your goals. Emotional control is closely connected to thought discipline. Emotions often follow thoughts, not circumstances. When you learn to pause and examine your thinking during emotional moments, you regain authority over your reactions. This ability prevents temporary feelings from creating permanent consequences. Consistency in thought management creates mental strength over time. Just as physical muscles grow through repeated resistance, mental discipline grows through repeated intentional thinking. Each time you redirect a negative thought, you strengthen your ability to do it again. Over time, what once required effort becomes natural. Visualization is another tool for shaping reality through thought. When you consistently imagine successful outcomes, your mind begins to align actions with that vision. Visualization trains the brain to recognize opportunities that support your goals, making progress more likely through awareness and preparation. Controlling your thoughts ultimately gives you control over your direction. Life responds to your internal alignment before it responds to your external effort. When your thinking becomes intentional, disciplined, and focused on growth, your reality begins to reflect the clarity, confidence, and purpose you have cultivated within. Discipline outperforms motivation. Expand it and don't add any ending sentence and make it lengthy in 10 paragraphs without heading and conclusion. Discipline outperforms motivation because motivation is emotional and temporary, while discipline is structured and reliable. Motivation rises and falls based on mood, environment, and circumstances, but discipline operates independently of how you feel. When motivation disappears, discipline remains, ensuring that progress continues even on the days when enthusiasm is absent. Relying on motivation creates inconsistency because emotions are unpredictable. Some days you feel inspired and energetic, while other days resistance feels heavy. Discipline removes the need to negotiate with yourself. It establishes routines and standards that guide behavior regardless of internal fluctuations, making consistency possible over the long term. Discipline is built through repetition and commitment, not intensity. Small, repeated actions performed daily create greater results than occasional bursts of motivated effort. Success favors those who show up consistently rather than those who wait for the perfect emotional state. Over time, disciplined actions compound into measurable progress. Motivation often focuses on how you feel, but discipline focuses on what needs to be done. This shift in focus reduces procrastination and eliminates unnecessary delays. When tasks are completed as a matter of principle rather than preference, momentum builds naturally, reinforcing confidence and capability. Discipline strengthens identity. Each time you follow through on a commitment, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable and capable. This self-trust becomes a powerful driver of future action. Motivation may spark the start, but discipline shapes who you become through sustained effort. Structure is one of discipline's greatest advantages. By creating systems, schedules, and habits, discipline minimizes decision fatigue. When actions are pre-decided, energy is conserved for execution rather than debate. This clarity allows for higher performance with less mental resistance. Discipline also provides stability during adversity. When challenges arise and motivation collapses under pressure, disciplined habits keep progress alive. Hard seasons do not derail those who are anchored by routine. Discipline becomes the anchor that holds steady when circumstances shift unexpectedly. Delayed gratification is a key element of discipline. Choosing long-term benefit over short-term comfort requires self-control and perspective. Discipline trains you to endure discomfort today in exchange for greater rewards tomorrow. This ability separates those who grow steadily from those who remain stuck. As discipline deepens, results become more predictable. Predictable effort produces predictable outcomes. When actions are consistent, progress becomes measurable and improvement becomes inevitable. This predictability reduces anxiety and increases confidence because outcomes are no longer left to chance. Discipline ultimately creates freedom rather than restriction. While it may feel limiting at first, discipline removes chaos, reduces regret, and expands options over time. A disciplined life is one where progress continues regardless of emotion, allowing growth, achievement, and consistency to become permanent features rather than temporary experiences. Thinking beyond today requires shifting your focus from immediate comfort to long-term impact. Short-term thinking prioritizes convenience, while long-term thinking prioritizes growth. When you begin to view your daily decisions through the lens of future outcomes, your actions become more intentional and your standards rise naturally. A legacy is not built in grand moments, but in ordinary choices repeated consistently over. What you do when no one is watching matters just as much as what you do in public. Every habit, every decision, and every sacrifice contributes to the story your life is writing. The future is shaped quietly through disciplined consistency rather than dramatic effort. Building a legacy means understanding that your actions extend beyond you. Your mindset, work ethic, and values influence those who observe you, whether you realize it or not. Leadership begins with example, and the way you live daily becomes instruction for others without a single word being spoken. Long-term thinkers measure success differently. Instead of chasing quick wins, they invest in systems that produce lasting results. They value sustainability over speed and depth over visibility. This perspective prevents burnout and regret while creating stability that grows stronger over time. Sacrifice is an unavoidable part of legacy building. Choosing growth often means saying no to distractions that offer immediate pleasure but long-term loss. Discipline replaces impulse, and purpose replaces comfort. Each sacrifice becomes an investment in something greater than the present moment. Thinking beyond today also changes how failure is viewed. Setbacks are no longer seen as final outcomes, but as temporary lessons within a much larger journey. This perspective builds resilience and patience, allowing progress to continue without being derailed by short-term disappointment. Legacy requires intentional planning rather than accidental living. Clear values guide decisions when emotions fluctuate. When actions align with long-term vision, consistency replaces confusion. Purpose-driven choices create momentum that compounds across years rather than days. Building a legacy involves preparing for impact you may never personally witness. True fulfillment comes from contributing to outcomes that outlive why. This mindset frees you from the need for immediate recognition and allows you to work diligently without constant validation. Long-term vision also influences how resources are managed. Time, energy, and effort are invested carefully rather than wasted impulsively. Every investment is evaluated based on its future return, creating efficiency and alignment with long-term objectives. When you commit to thinking beyond today, your life gains depth and direction. Daily actions become meaningful because they serve a future that extends beyond immediate results. A legacy is formed through consistent alignment between values, vision, and action, shaping outcomes that endure far beyond the present moment. Taking action despite fear begins with understanding that fear is a natural response to uncertainty, not a signal of incapability. Fear often appears when you step outside familiarity and toward growth. Instead of interpreting fear as a warning to stop, recognizing it as evidence that you are stretching beyond your comfort zone changes how you respond to it. Fear grows strongest in stillness. When you delay action, your mind fills the gap with imagined outcomes and worst-case scenarios. Movement interrupts this cycle. Even small steps weaken fear's influence because action replaces speculation with experience. Progress begins the moment motion replaces hesitation. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward while fear is present. Waiting to feel confident before acting often results in permanent delay. Confidence is built through action, not before it. Each step taken reinforces self-belief and proves that fear does not have authority over your choices. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It presents itself as caution, timing, or preparation, convincing you to wait for a perfect moment that never arrives. Learning to distinguish between genuine preparation and avoidance allows you to act with clarity instead of self-deception. Growth requires recognizing when delay is driven by fear rather than strategy. Action creates clarity that thinking alone cannot produce. Many questions are answered only through experience. When you move forward despite fear, Feedback replaces uncertainty. This feedback becomes valuable information that guides adjustment and improvement, making fear less intimidating over time. Fear loses power through repetition. The first action is often the hardest, but each subsequent step becomes easier. Familiarity replaces intimidation, and what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Consistent action rewires your response to fear, transforming it from a barrier into a signal for opportunity. Taking action despite fear builds resilience. Each time you act, you strengthen your capacity to handle discomfort and uncertainty. This resilience becomes transferable, allowing you to face future challenges with greater composure. The ability to function under fear becomes a skill developed through practice rather than talent. Fear thrives on the illusion of irreversible consequences. In reality, most actions are adjustable and most mistakes are recoverable. Understanding that progress allows for correction reduces the pressure to be perfect. Action opens doors while inaction keeps them permanently closed. Momentum is a powerful antidote to fear. Once movement begins, energy shifts from internal resistance to external engagement. Momentum carries you forward, making it easier to continue than to stop. This forward motion gradually replaces fear with focus and purpose. Taking action despite fear aligns you with growth rather than stagnation. Fear may remain present, but it no longer dictates direction. Each courageous step reinforces your ability to choose progress over comfort, creating a pattern of action that expands potential and strengthens self-trust through consistent movement forward.